Hello, this is Logan Bodenhammer, and I am going to explain to you how I made my 3D animation, The Search for the Wild Dala. So for my inspiration, my two main points were I wanted to make an animation, and I wanted it to have something to do with Lindsberg in Sweden. And in Lindsberg, there are a lot of Dala horses around town, and it's actually referred to as the Search for the Wild Dala, where you can just kind of have fun going to all the different places around Lindsberg and collecting these different sightings of the Dala horses. And when I started thinking about this, that's when I came up with the inspiration I wanted for my story. So when I started thinking about my storyline, it ended up coming with a Tomty lost his Dala horse and is trying to find it again. And I came up with a Tomty because a Tomty is sort of a Swedish folklore kind of gnome sort of deal. And it goes along with the whole search for the Dala thing. And I thought it could become a really good storyline. And the next step was kind of developing my storyline a little bit further. My story needed a bit of an antagonist to give it a bit more suspense, and for the reason he lost his Dala horse in the first place. And I decided I wanted the antagonist to be a thunderstorm. And the thunderstorm actually appears twice in my film. It appears as the original cause for loss, but then I added an irony at the end where the thunderstorm is actually the way he finds his Dala horse again. And then I also added to the storyline by finding and coming up with ideas for different situations around town for Sven to get into, like jumping up and down trying to reach for the phone in the Taladala. And after I had come up with all the ideas, I started trying to develop characters. And this is a picture of some drawings I made for Tomty and the doll horse. And once I had my characters completed, I had to model them in Blender. The the one on the top obviously is the doll horse, and the one on the bottom is Sven. And it took quite a bit of time. That took up my first week, but once I had gotten them completely modeled, I had to rig them. And rigging is the process of creating the bones, which allow me to manipulate the character and makes it far easier to animate than if I were to manipulate each individual vertex. Because the different bones manipulate the vertex that correspond to them for me once I move them. So I can move it like an actual skeleton would. And once I had all my characters created the first week, in the second week, I had to animate the characters in Blender, render the animation out of Blender, overlay the animation over footage in Adobe After Effects, and export the scene out of After Effects. And I had to do this for each individual scene, and this took me the rest of the time. I just started on the second week and ended up going all the way through the fourth week. And so I had to repeat this process 41 times because I ended up having 41 animated scenes within my movie. And as you can imagine, it can took quite a while, but I finally made it through. And then when I put my film together, I used iMovie and I put all the scenes in the order I wanted. And then I got my music and I sort of timed my scenes to different good transition points built within the music already. And that's how I ended up coming up with my final project. So if I were to do this project again, which I probably will, I would want to fix lighting problems in the rendering process because every once in a while, in a few of the scenes, there would be different lighting differences. Like in the last scene, it was the worst. There was, in some of the frames, the lighting was a lot brighter than it was in the rest. And throughout all of the frames, there were these weird lines, like shadow lines, going through the characters. And I didn't like that, but I didn't know how to fix it. So I'd like to figure out what caused that before I do another project like this. And if I were to do this again, I would also add some scenes with camera motion to make it more interesting. Again, I didn't know how to make the characters move with camera, but I'd like to figure that out for the next time I do a project like this. So yeah, that's my basic reflection, and hopefully you enjoyed watching my video if you did, and if you didn't, you should check it out. Well, thanks guys!